there, it's Tuesday, it's day 2 of week 13 of 52 weeks of vlogging, and there is lead in our rice. Okay, so let's back up. Last week, a study was released showing that they had discovered that rice imported into the United States from countries like China and India and Italy and Taiwan and like everywhere that they import rice from had lead in it. And not only did the imported rice contain lead, but it contained lead in levels between 20 and 60 times higher than what is considered safe. Okay, so what is lead and why is this a problem? Lead is an element. It's found on the periodic table. Its atomic number is 82, which means it has 82 protons in its nucleus. It's also everywhere. Lead occurs in our natural environment, in the soil in very small amounts. And a really long time ago, back when the Romans were doing their thing, they discovered that lead, being a metal, was nice and malleable and easy to work with, so they did all kinds of crap with it. They turned it into flashing for the roofs, and they made tiles out of it. They used it in their piping. And we still use small amounts of lead in bullets. We also use it to make fishing tackle, batteries, aviation fuel, and all kinds of other things. Now, until fairly recently, we didn't really know how harmful lead could be, so we used it in pretty much everything, from tubes of toothpaste to paint on the walls and on toys and in paintings. We put it in our gasoline. Remember unleaded gasoline from the 80s? Well, the leaded stuff, that had lead in it. And then we figured out lead was bad. We did a great big collective whoopsie and we started pulling it out of stuff. You're not allowed now to put it in any product that children are going to have regular, consistent contact with. That includes house paint, children's jewelry, children's toys, food, and the gasoline that you're going to put into your car. Why is lead bad? Well, basically, when it gets into your body, either through consumption or inhalation, it's absorbed into your bloodstream, and then from your bloodstream, it gets to your brain, your liver, your kidneys, and it pretty much wreaks havoc everywhere it goes. In children and in pregnant women, where the bones are still forming and being changed, it gets mistaken for calcium, so it's embedded in your bones. In the brain, it causes the axons of your nerve cells to degenerate and lose their myelin coating. Remember all those crazy Roman emperors like Caligula, who committed incest and thought he should be treated as a god, and then Nero, who also committed incest and then murdered his family and then told the senators to commit suicide, and then Domitian, who also committed incest and then had Vestal virgins buried alive on charges of immorality? Oh, they weren't crazy. That was lead poisoning. And everywhere else, it interferes with and weakens cell membranes and the DNA within the nucleus of your cell. On top of that, if it's stored in your bones, it is eventually re-released back into your bloodstream, which means that even one acute exposure to high levels of lead can result in problems 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years down the line, as the lead is continually re-released back into your bloodstream from your bones, so that it can continue to flow around to your brain and your kidneys and your heart and just cause problems everywhere. It's kind of bad. So how did it get in our rice? Well, remember how we still use lead in the manufacturing of batteries and fishing tackle and all kinds of other stuff? It's also used in a lot of soldering, when we buy cell phones, when we buy computers, when we buy TVs. All that electronic equipment that gets sent back to Asia for recycling, that process releases lead. And that lead ends up in the chemical effluent coming from the industrial factories and complexes where the recycling is happening or where the manufacturing is happening in the first place. And it makes its way into the soil and into the groundwater. And in many cases, it's just used straight up to irrigate the crops. Yes, some crops in China and India are irrigated with unprocessed industrial waste. Ew. And if it's in the water and the soil that the crop is being grown in, it's absorbed into the crop is harvested, it's sent to us, and we eat it. Obviously, this is a problem. We can't keep on eating things that are full of lead, nor should we keep on eating things that are full of lead. The bigger problem is what to do about it. There are trade agreements in place, there are relationships to keep up, there are political people to piss off. And while the US figures out all this stuff with China, India, Italy, Taiwan, and pretty much everyone else they're importing rice from, it might be a good idea to steer clear of the imported rice for now. In the meantime, if you consume a large amount of imported rice and are concerned about lead buildup in your body, or for that matter, if you have lead paint in your home, have any hobbies that involve lead, like firing guns, gunshot residue has an amount of lead in it, or maybe you make fishing tackle or you paint with artistic paints which sometimes still contain lead, you can see your doctor. There are a couple of simple tests that can be done to assess the level of lead running around in your body. One is a blood test, which will test the amount of loose flowing lead in your bloodstream. It won't test the amount of lead you have stored in your bones, which is more of a long-term lead exposure kind of thing, but it will test how much lead is actually flowing to your organs right now and see if it's within acceptable limits. You can also do something called X-ray fluorescence. It's an X-ray test with a very low level of radiation that will test the level of lead actually being stored in your bones, and that will assess your long-term exposure to lead over your lifetime. There are ways to get rid of the lead. It's called chelation. Basically, you eat something that will bond really, really well with the lead and then bring it into the bloodstream. It gets taken up by the kidneys and then you pee it out. And most of all, this might be a good time to vary your diet, especially if you're like my family and you rely pretty heavily on rice. There are many, many other grains that you can use to replace rice or to have as an alternative to rice. You can have quinoa, which cooks up in about half the time as rice. You can try teff, which cooks up in a little bit longer. There's corn, there's oats. There are alternatives like amaranth and spelt. There's a wide variety of things to choose from. And generally speaking, for the sake of good health, it's a good idea to vary your diet widely anyway. Not only will it provide you with a greater variety of nutrients from a better variety of sources, but because you'll be absorbing all the nutrients that your body needs and you won't be deficient in any way, your body is actually less likely to absorb that lead and more likely to expel it in the first place. Thanks for watching. If you like my videos and want to see more of them, you can subscribe at youtube.com/user/Ishta vlogs. You can also like and share. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter. Links are in the description. If you come back tomorrow, I'll be doing a popcorn and coffee book review of Coraline, or maybe The Hunger Games. Coraline, The Hunger Games, Coraline, The Hunger Games. I can't decide. We'll find out tomorrow. And come back on Thursday for more on the political ins and outs of how to deal with this whole lead in food / toys / other imports issue, which does seem to keep cropping up. Until then, thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.